Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast for the round 9 review. What a fantastic round we had between the Bulldogs and the Cowboys, which is where we'll get started today. The Cowboys winning that game 28 points to 12 over the Bulldogs. I'll put my hand up here. I tipped Canterbury to win this, and I actually thought they were going to win well. Even though the Cowboys have been red hot the last 6 out of 7 weeks. I just thought that as good as the Cowboys have been, their defense still has issues, and I thought the Dogs were just too good of a club, and probably have shown the last 2 years that their system was too good, has been very good. And I just trusted in them. At the moment, I'm realizing pretty quickly you can't trust Canterbury and anything they're doing at the moment. Let's go through this game. I thought Scott Drinkwater was absolutely unbelievable in this game. Jake Clifford, Tom Dearden, the way the halves are straightening up in attack. I think over the years, Tom Dearden's always played very straight, but I feel this year he's really dominating and getting the ball in his hands. He's playing a lot straighter. He's also he's also got this maturity in his game now. So, say even 3 or 4 years ago, say back in 2022 when the Cowboys made the prelim and just lost to Parramatta in that game in the prelim final. Tom Dearden, the only thing in his game back then that really, I guess, was probably showed that he was to agree back then, still a little bit inexperienced, was at times he would push the pass, and at times he would kick when he didn't have to. Now he's got the timing right. Now he doesn't feel under pressure. Now he's playing his own game, and he's actually reading the game really well. His maturity from 2022 to 2026 in that time has been unbelievable. And I think that was shown in the Origin decider last year, and even when he came in game 2 as well, and allowed Queensland to win that great game of Origin in Perth. For me personally, the Cowboys absolutely fantastic. It's so good to see Jason Taumalolo play the way he's playing. I dead set haven't seen him play this well since probably 2017, 2018. The story goes that his knees had been cleaned out over the off season, and that's made a huge difference to the way he's playing. But also with the new rules, the extended bench and whatnot, I don't know. The way the game has gotten faster, Tomalolo is the old Tomalolo. I think he's just playing his game. He probably thinks, you know what, I've probably only got a couple of years left of my career to go, and I'm just going to give it my all. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's playing like a happy footballer, and I think it's fair to say we probably haven't seen him play like a happy footballer since Paul Green was coach. And I don't think he's been that happy under Todd Payten, I think it would be fair to say. But this year, something must have really happened to help their relationship, because he is playing for his coach. And it's great to see. I genuinely love the Cowboys. As I mentioned, I put my hand up. I tipped Canterbury to win this game, but just the Clifford as well. What a great 5'8" he has been for the Cowboys. When I did my Cowboys season preview for 2026 back in February, we talked about the halves and what they're going to do there. My thing was I wanted Jake Clifford to go to 6, and there were questions up in the air. Was Jackson Purdue a fair dinkum option to play 5'8"? Was Scott Drinkwater possibly an option to go back to 5'8"? Scott Drinkwater played a bit of 5'8" for the Cowboys back in 2021. So I wasn't sure if possibly Purdue might start the season at fullback. There were whispers around. But in saying that, I wanted Jake Clifford there based on his kicking game. And he actually played, I think it was against the Dragons in the preseason challenge, and he absolutely nailed it. The try assists. But what really impressed me as a rugby league fan watching Jake Clifford in that preseason challenge was the way he directed his team around, the way in which he engaged the players around him and actually made the players around him play better football. And his kicking game, for me, Jake Clifford is genuinely one of the most underrated kickers in terms of bombs, high kicks, long kicks. Short kicking game is fantastic. He's dead set one of the great goal kickers as well. For me, I think the Cowboys have been in red hot form. You'll talk about Scott Drinkwater, Tom Dearden, Jason Taumalolo, the big stars of the side. But for me, what's really helped the Cowboys this year is Jake Clifford starting at 6, and I really respect Todd Payten for not changing the halves at all. I mean, we looked at Newcastle the last few years. They had Tyson Gamble, Jackson Hastings, and then, back in 2023. And then, over the years, they've had Ponga move there. And I think they had Milford there at one point a few years ago. And like the halves combinations and the consistent changes that Newcastle have had over the last 4 years has been unbelievable. And now Newcastle have a bit of stability, even though Dylan Brown had been injured for a month. That there was players knowing where they were going to be, and there's a sense at Newcastle that everyone is on the same page. And what an underrated thing is in rugby league is stability. For me, it's just so important. And Jake Clifford knows that his jersey is his, and he's not fighting for that position. He knows it's his, and I think there's a calmness around the Cowboys at the moment where the players know they are earning those positions. They are earning wearing those certain numbers that they have on their back at the moment. And they seem like a happy club at the moment that are focusing on their strengths, which is their attack, obviously. But what really impressed me about the Cowboys in this game is their defense. Now, I mentioned earlier about 5 minutes ago that my concern with the Cowboys this year, even though they have been winning games, has been their defence. To keep Canterbury to 12 is absolutely unbelievable. Now, I understand that they had players out. Marcelo Montoya, he was dropped for this game. Viliami Kikau, he's done his pec, I believe, out for 3 months, I believe. It's quite a serious injury. For me personally, I just think I'll get this book over here so I don't have to keep looking over there. For me personally, I just think the Cowboys' defense, especially their goal line defense in this game, was absolutely unbelievable. Just players standing up for the Cowboys that we haven't seen in a really, really long time, like Cohen Hess, who's been brilliant for them this year. Tamalolo, Reid Marnie was the key for this game. What a big game it was for him. And when he threw that ball, by the way, Helam Lukey, for me, has been their best player this year, the Cowboys. Absolutely unbelievable. But Reid Marnie came into this game with an attitude of, fuck you, Bulldogs. I'm going to show you guys what you lost. And he delivered. And I think even Bulldogs fans were scratching their head, probably thinking, we shouldn't have let him go. And I think it's fair to say they should not have let him go. Bailey Hayward is not a bad player, but I actually feel... Got an itchy ear. Sorry about that. Bailey Hayward, I feel sorry for him. For me, he's not a number 9. For me, he is either a great utility off the bench or he's a lock forward. Bailey Hayward, for me, can play number 9, but he's not going to win you a comp at number 9. And I genuinely believe that they really lack, unless his game dramatically changes within the next couple of months, if he is to stay in that position, I think they miss the creativity out of dummy half that Reid Marnie gave them from 2023 to 2025. The amount of tries that the Canterbury scored, especially in the years 24 and 25, where Marnie would just throw that short ball 2 metres away from the try line and he'd put the players like Sam Hughes or Viliami Kikau or all these players just hitting holes. And, Reid Marnie, he's doing that at the Cowboys now, and Canterbury just don't have that X factor. And they look so boring in attack, Canterbury. They look like Lego men playing. They look very robotic. They just go from one side to the other. Galvin, Preston combination is a great combination, right? But it's like Galvin, Preston. It sounds absolutely crazy, and criticize me on the comments if you want to, but I'm wondering if that game that Canterbury beat Penrith made them relax too much. Did they get cocky? Did they get arrogant? Did they think, oh, okay, we've got this? Did they just sort of assume that they were going to win games because they beat Penrith? Was them looking back, beating Penrith, a good thing looking back at it? I'm wondering if they learn more if Penrith belted them that night and they win at least a couple of games since. It's a bold statement. It's something that it is rugby league, and the mental side of it, the psychological side of rugby league is a huge factor in terms of how certain players, individual players, certain teams perform. And I genuinely believe that since they've beaten Penrith, they I reckon they've gone, it's just going to be like last year where we can make the top four and we'll go from there. I haven't seen, I mean, Stephen Crichton's been out of form. I'd still have him in Origin 100%. The talk of him missing out on Origin blows my mind. He is one of the biggest game players. 2021 scores a winning try, really, deciding try to win the game. The intercept try from the pass of Cody Walker in that grand final. 2022, he scores the first try against Parramatta. 2023, Nathan Cleary gets all the raps in the world for that grand final, and I believe he should have. What he did was unbelievable. But if you watch Stephen Crichton in that final 16 minutes of that grand final, there's no way Cleary can do what he does without Stephen Crichton. We'll always remember that grand final back for what Cleary did when we look back at it, but what Crichton did in that grand final was unbelievable. What he did, he brought the Bulldogs to the finals for the first time since 2016, I believe, when he got there in 2024. 2025 captain, got them to the top four. He is an Origin player. He has to be there. Now, I know he's out of form and he's got a big, he's got things to work on at the moment, but he is a player that I genuinely believe the Bulldogs can come back and make the 8. I believe that. I know it hasn't been great for them. I think they've won 3, lost 5, and they've had a bye. And let's be honest, they were lucky to win that game in Vegas for the Dragons. They had a very controversial call go their way, which led them to kick down the field and Stephen Crichton to kick the field goal into Golden Point. That would have been a draw. In my eyes, if that didn't happen, I thought they were lucky there. For me personally, the Bulldogs they offered nothing in attack, and I think 12 points shows that. I do wonder that their positions, can they win a comp with Bailey Hayward at 9 and Connor Tracy at 1? I'm going to say they can win a comp with Connor Tracy at fullback. He reminds me of a young Luke Patton, where he's not that biggest superstar on the side, but he's so reliable and consistent and hard-working. His work ethic from the back is fantastic. And I also think Connor Tracy, he can make errors in defence, but overall, I think he's always there. He always knows where to be. I just thought it was a really disappointing effort from Canterbury. And this was a Bulldogs home game as well. I probably could understand it more if it was over in North Queensland at 1300 Smiles Stadium. But for me, the Bulldogs are really, really disappointing since they've beaten Penrith. Really disappointing. And credit to the Cowboys. A fantastic win for them, winning that game 28 points to 12. Let's get to the next game. The Dolphins beating the Storm 28-10. Now, I believe it was 10-0 at one point to Melbourne. And Su'a-Fa'alago runs about 80 metres and scores a try. And at 10-0, I thought, okay, Storm are probably going to run away with this. Now, I did tip Storm in this game and put my hand up again wrong. It wasn't a good feeling being, 0 from 2 when it came to the tipping. The Dolphins, credit to them. Jack Bostock was fantastic coming back into the side. I think it was a masterstroke coaching selection from Christian Wolf to put Jack Bostock in. Is it Bostock or Bostock? I'm going to go Bostock. It sounds better. In centre. That was fantastic. He's got a bit of skill for an outside back as well, and his passing selection to his outside men in I think it was Selwyn Cobbo was fantastic in this game. You've got in fact I think it was Cobbo. I thought Bostock was fantastic. Max Plath, he's a good player. I know traditionally he's a 13. He can play dummy half, as we've seen over the last 3 seasons. But for me personally, I think he is just such a great player based on, you can put him in at edge forward, lock forward, you can put him at prop and dummy half, and he'll do a job for you. If I'm Billy Slater, Max Plath, and this is another bold statement I'm willing to say, if I'm Billy Slater, Max Plath for me is one of the first picked in Origin. To me, he's just an Origin player. The way in which he just is so reliable and consistent. And I don't think I've ever seen Max Plath have a bad game. And as a Manly fan, I know you'd love the star players and the superstar players, but I watch Max Plath and he just reminds me of, different bodies, I know, but like a Ben Kennedy. He just reminds me of that hardworking, wasn't a superstar player, but just a culture player that would bring such a hard work work ethic into a side. He is, I think he's only 24 years old, Max Plath, but he is absolutely fantastic. He was in this game as well. And Jeremy Marshall-King is expected to return in round 10. But the job Max Plath has done since he's returned from injury after the first few rounds has been fantastic. Fine Fuiaki on the edge forwards and Lemuelu. Geez, those players in the edges absolutely fantastic for the Dolphins. They've been unbelievable. The hammer, Herbie Farnworth, for me, has overtaken Stephen Crichton as the best centre in the game. He has been the best centre this year by far. He is dominating. He ran for, I think, here over 230 metres. Like he is just an outstanding player. Defensively, so strong. He is just such a player, such a quality player. He is just fantastic. Congratulations to the Dolphins. I thought Isaiah Katoa led them around really well. And also, he played the long game. You know, at 10-0 down, he didn't panic as a 7. They've lost a fair few games in a row now, the Dolphins. They have struggled this year. They haven't been as elite as what a lot of people thought. But in saying that, what really impressed me again, just like the Cowboys, you know, the Cowboys and the Dolphins aren't traditionally the best defensive sides in the competition at the moment. But the Dolphins defensively, for me, were really, really impressive in this game. Congratulations to them. Tom Gilbert, Felice Kafusi, these veteran players are doing such an important, great job. And just before I get on to the next game, I want to give a shout out to Brad Schneider, who I thought his short kicking game was really good in this game. I thought he played really well in this game. And I just think Cody Nikorima, for me, when he got suspended for a couple of matches, I thought, that's going to be a huge, huge loss in attack. But I think he's held his own there, Brad Schneider, in that number 6 jersey to replace Nikorima throughout that suspension. So congratulations to the Dolphins. They've been close, the Dolphins. You know, they almost beat Penrith in Golden Point a couple of weeks ago in Darwin. But I give credit to the Dolphins in this game. And most importantly, what impressed me as a rugby league fan watching the Dolphins, as I mentioned, was their defence. We know the Dolphins can score 28, 38, 48, 50 plus points every game. But defensively, to hold the Melbourne Storm to 10. Now, I understand the Melbourne Storm have lost, 7 games in a row. I think they need to win 11 of the next 16 games to make finals. I'm not writing them off yet of making the top 8. I think Melbourne, if any team is on the bottom of the ladder and can come up with a run, it can be the Storm. But let's go over to the Storm now. I feel it's weird, right? Because I'm a Manly fan and there's that rivalry through 2007, 2008, 2011, and there still is a rivalry happening between Manly and Melbourne. The Battle of Brookvale. There's so much happened between those two clubs through that mid-2000s to 2010s. There's been some classic encounters between the two clubs, but I just genuinely can't help but to feel a little bit sorry for them as well. So much of their planning in 2026 they would not have foreseen a couple of years ago. They probably wouldn't have seen Nelson Asofa Solomona leaving. They tapped him on the back and he's pursuing his boxing career. Pappenhausen, they wouldn't have seen that coming. I didn't really think Pappenhausen had a great year last year. I understand they made the grand final, but I thought it probably wasn't one of his better years. I thought he was a bit quieter at certain stages. And I thought he had lost a tad of speed, to be honest. But, Eli Katoa, I think, is the biggest blow for Melbourne. And I watch Melbourne now. They've got young guys, Cooper Clark, who hasn't played much New South Wales Cup at all. And they've had young guys in there. Joe Chan was great for the opening few rounds of the year, and he's been really quiet since, making errors and unforced errors. And it's just one of those things where I think they have a lot of inexperience in their side at the moment. And, I understand they've got the quality of Munster and Hughes. Well, Hughes was out for this game. I thought Tyron Wishart's try was great. I thought he was a huge blow when he came off injured. He looks to be out for at least a couple of months. It doesn't look too good. For me, the Melbourne Storm, they're just lacking that experience. I understand they've got Harry Grant, Cameron Munster. They've had Jerome Hughes for the opening stages of this half, but of the first half of the season. But in saying that, you expect more from the Melbourne Storm. they struggle to come out with anything once they get in the grind. Eli Katoa for me was the best second rower of the year in 2025, and I think if Melbourne go on and win that premiership against Brisbane, he gets the Clive Churchill medal. And to be honest, I understand Brisbane won it, and Reece Walsh thoroughly deserved that grand final Clive Churchill award. But if Reece Walsh didn't do what he did and Brisbane still somehow won, I think even Broncos fans could understand if Eli Katoa got announced Clive Churchill. It's not something you want to see, I guess, if your club wins a comp. You'd rather see a man of the match come from your own premiership winning side. I think that's the way it should work. But in saying that, Eli Katoa's performance last year was fantastic. They're missing his presence, his athletic ability from those crossfield kicks, and his combination on that right edge with Jerome Hughes is a huge loss. That they just aren't the same Melbourne Storm at the moment. I think it's a huge game for them against the Tigers. I think if they lose against the Tigers, you can kiss their finals goodbye for the first time since 2010. But, Craig Bellamy hasn't missed out on the finals as a head coach. So, I mean, apart from 2010, but that sort of was out of his control then. So, yeah, look, I don't know where Melbourne go from here. I think they have to win. It's going to be a grand final for them to win against the Tigers. If they lose to the Tigers, I think it's goodbye. They'd have to win 10 from their next 15. And, they haven't got the easiest draw as well for the back half of the season. Melbourne, they will also have the likes of Munster, Grant, all these players, Trent Loiero, possibly in the Queensland side as well. So they certainly have a lot of issues to deal with. Of course, I don't know Craig Bellamy on a personal level, but I felt very sad when I found out the news. I hope he's all right. And I certainly wish him all the very best with his health news. It's not good. And I've got no doubt that news the players would have found out a while ago before the media, and everyone in rugby league would have found out. And it makes sense that perhaps the players are a little bit rattled by the news of Craig and his health. Best wishes to Craig Bellamy moving forward. The Gold Coast Titans are losing to the Raiders 28 points to 12. Very disappointing from the Titans. They were expected to win this. I think they were around $1.54 favourites to win this. They didn't. I think it was really disappointing from them. They are, they showed so much in the preseason challenge. And as I've mentioned on this podcast a few times, I'm part of the minority when people say, oh, you can't take anything out of the preseason challenge. I think there are some things you can take out of, and I think it gives players confidence going into the season. It gives the fans an idea of what young guns are coming through the ranks. For example, Cade Reid at the Dragons versus Newcastle in one of the first games of the season and absolutely dominated. And I think it gives the fans a better feeling going into the competition. Going into the NRL regular season of exactly where players can play. It shows the flexibility within the side of players playing at lock or dummy half, such as the Max Plath or whatnot. Max Plath didn't play in the trials this year, but it just gives I guess it educates fans and teaches fans. This is the playing group we've got at the moment. These are the young guys coming through the ranks. And when I say educates fans, I'm talking from not a footy IQ level, but I'm talking from a level of refreshing the memory of some fans aren't as big as others. So fans might remember some players, but they might forget some players, and then they show up again and they think, oh, that's right, that guy was really good. It's great to see him back in the side. So, I think it teaches the rugby league fans, players, teams, clubs, coaches a lot in that 3-week period of the preseason challenge. And for me, the Titans were the red hot team alongside Parramatta in that preseason challenge. And for me, they've just been extremely disappointing, really disappointing this year. They've had a couple of wins. They had one against the Dragons. But yeah, I mean, I can't remember their other win, unfortunately. But yeah, they have, they've been really disappointing. They really have. Defensively, they just haven't got the players at the moment. Josh Hannay really has inherited this roster, and I think he's done a great job with what he's got at the moment. I've got to be honest, but in saying that, He needs to totally, if I'm Rebecca Frizzell, the owner of the club, and the Frizzells and, Matty Johns, Gordon Tallis, I'm saying to Josh Hannay, you do what you need to do for the next 2 or 3 years, and then we will judge your coaching performances, because the rebuild of this club now it's a really big one, and it's not like rebuilding a club say 20 years ago when it was easier to do. You're now going to compete with about in 2 years, you'll have 19 teams in the comp. So a lot more rivalry. It's going to be harder to get players, harder to sign players. And since PNG have come in, everyone's freaking out with the Luai stuff. Managers are getting on top of it, and they're making sure that even players 18 months away from being off contract, they're doing stuff behind the scenes to try and get them locked up. For me personally, I think the Titans, honestly, from 2028, 2029, I can see them making finals for the first time in a long time since 2021. But I look at the team now and I just don't see enough to suggest that they can turn this around this season. Unfortunately, from what I've seen of the Gold Coast Titans in the opening 9 weeks of the season, for me, they are dead set 100% a bottom four side of the competition this year. And that's not Josh Hannay's fault. It's just the year that has to be, it's just one of those. I know that's not easy for Titans fans to hear, because they've had it pretty tough since they've entered the competition in 2007. They made a prelim in 2010, but the lack of success this club has been unacceptable for the fans, and I think they deserve so much better. And I want this rebuild to work. I don't want to rebuild for a year. Say if the Bulldogs do fall out of the top 8 this year, you don't want a team to rebuild, be good for 2 years, and then drop out of the finals. You want consistency with your rebuild. If Josh Hannay is going to come in and do a rebuild, you want him to do it properly, not just for 2-3 years and then see how we go. And if that means short-term pain for extreme, consistent long-term gain and multiple premierships or whatnot, then I think you just bite the tongue and think, you know what? Could be a shit year this year. Could be a shit year next year. They just haven't got the players. They just haven't got the class in certain positions. They've got Tino, Keanu Kinney, Jaden Campbell, AJ Brimson. They do have these guns in the side, but for me, they just haven't got, the hooker. I think for me, Jaden Campbell's a 6. He's not a 7. So I'd go Campbell at 6. Look, I don't want to smash the club, but look at who they've got rid of over the years. Look at how Tanner Boyd is playing now. They had Jamal Fogarty there as a captain of the club under Justin Holbrook. They've let go of some quality halves over the years. There's a young kid, Zane Harrison, I believe his name is. Please let me know in the comments, Gold Coast fans, if I'm wrong. But I think he played in the trials. They could chuck him at halfback. I just think Jaden Campbell is not a 7. I think he's a 6. Going to be really impressed to see. Really intrigued to see AJ Brimson if he maintains that centre spot. I like that they give him early ball and he does his thing, but for me, he's just not a centre. He can play centre. For me, it's like Ruben Garrick. Ruben Garrick can play centre. For me, I think he's a better winger. And I just think AJ Brimson isn't playing in his best position at the moment. I think he's a fullback, to be honest with you, but you can't move Keanu Kinney. He's too good. I just think they have and have had over the years selection headaches. I think they need to just get a veteran forward in there. They've got Tino, obviously. Mo Fodawaker, I think, has been a bit disappointing over the last 12 months. I think Jamin Jolliffe, the injury to Jamin Jolliffe earlier in the year was really big. I think he leaves a big hole defensively. His line speed is really good. His experience is extremely appreciated within the Gold Coast Titans camp, I'm sure. For me, the Titans were extremely disappointing in this game. Let's go to the Raiders. For me, the Raiders were absolutely fantastic. It was so good to see Canberra get there. I think it was their third or fourth win of the season. They were outstanding. Credit to Dane Laurie, who I thought was really good in this game. Tom Starling, for me, funny, isn't it? 12 months ago, they were thinking of tapping Tom Starling on the back and saying, mate, you may have to find another club. But then he just finds form, and he's been in that number 9 jersey ever since. He was a minor premiership winning number 9, which is, a rare thing to say for the Canberra Raiders since 1994. For me, Tom Starling has been the glue of that side. Now, they haven't started the season overly too well, but for me, in saying that, they have been improving pretty quickly, I may say. The Titans, they have a lot of quality in their side. It's not the side that I believe can make finals, but they still have quality players in there. Not a quality team, but quality players, as I mentioned. Big Tino, the captain, May Fodawaker on his day, AJ Brimson, Jaden Campbell. Like, they've got so much talent in this side. They just can't put it together. And the Raiders, I thought Ethan Strange, for me, this was his best game. He was fantastic. His kicking game was great. His passing selection was fantastic. His defense was really strong in this game. If you go back and watch this game, Ethan Sanders. Sorry, did I say Ethan Strange? Ethan Sanders. Ethan Strange shouldn't play in this game. Ethan Sanders, I'm talking about, the young 7 for Canberra. Now, he's been under the pressure a little bit the last couple of weeks. He's certainly learning his craft as a young player from Parramatta that the Raiders bought a couple of seasons ago. He is learning his craft. But in saying that, he's now starting to really show what he's all about, and I'm happy for him, because there were talks in the media a couple of weeks ago. What would Ricky do with this young halfback? They, of course, have bought Kobe Black from the Brisbane Broncos, and I think a 3-year deal. So they have Kobe Black there playing reserve grade, waiting in the wings to get his opportunity in the halves. I think, Ethan Strange being not playing in this game and being injured, I thought was a huge blow. But I love the way in which Corey Horsburgh as well moved from lock forward to starting front row. I loved what him and Joe Tarpanay did as well. I think they were really impressive. Hudson Young didn't play in this game, neither did Ethan Strange, and they were able to win this game 13+. So congratulations to the Raiders there. They have such a young team, don't they? KO Weeks. Of course, there was no Xavier Savage in this side either. I thought Jed Stewart has, he's been a little bit, under the weather, under the high ball, but I also think he's a really good player. I really rate Jed Stewart. He's probably not your first picked in a side. He probably is a fringe player, but for me personally, I think he's a really good fringe player. I think he's a player that can come in if an outside back is injured and play on the wing and do a good job. And I thought defensively, I thought he was really strong as well. So congratulations to the Raiders winning that. The second game on Super Saturday was Eels 14, the Warriors 36. Yeah, the Wars winning this one. 36 points to 14 by 22 points. I am really super impressed with the Warriors. The way they are playing, for me, they just have... I think it's the Warriors and the Raiders that I look at, and I think they are the two best sides in the competition in terms of forward pack. I think the Wars forward pack, what Jackson Ford is doing in that number 10 jersey is unbelievable. Then you have a 4-time premiership winner in James Fisher-Harris at front row. Wade Egan is unbelievable. He's talk about creativity with Reid Marnie. He is fucking killing it from dummy half, Wade Egan. His no-look passing, his flat balls. Just watch Wade Egan. A lot of dummy halves pass, 3 meters, 4 meters behind. Wade Egan, he's just got this natural ability of picking up the ball and just flat ball, getting his front rowers running onto that football as hard as they can, as fast as they can. And he's just got this real flat, free flowing style football from dummy half. His attack is beautiful to watch. It really is. I love Wade Egan, what he does. He's a bit injury prone. He does get some head knocks. But ever since he's gone over to the Warriors, I think it was at Penrith originally, I think he's been one of the best buys, especially in the last decade for the Wars. So they are sensational. But James Fisher-Harris, Jackson Ford, Leka Halasima, fuck, he is a gun. He's just dead set, one of the best second rowers I've ever seen in my life. and he's only been playing for a few years. He is unbelievable, like a Halasima. Dimitri Varmaga off the bench, like they just have such a good side. Aaron Clark, 2-3 years ago, was at the Gold Coast Titans, and we're talking about how is he a hooker? Is he a lock? Is he a bench player? Is he a first grader? These kind of questions I remember thinking to myself and hearing in the media and hearing on podcasts. Is Aaron Clark an out and out consistent first grade player? I wouldn't have said yes, but now for me, he's up there with the elite lock forwards in this competition. And the work that he does and his defense and his ball playing and his creativity and his short balls, he is such a good player, Aaron Clark. I think he won lock forward of the year last year. He is dead set a freak. He really is a freak. And it reminds me of Isaiah Yeo. I think Isaiah Yeo debuted for the Panthers, I'm going to say back in 2014. And he, probably up until 2018, he was a decent player. He was a handy player. He could play centre, second row, a little bit of lock. He was on the bench a little bit. Trent Barrett then leaves Manly, comes to the Panthers under Ivan Cleary in 2019. And I always remember Isaiah Yeo. I think he said it on the continuous core team about 4 or 5 years ago when he made his Origin debut. And he spoke about the way Trent Barrett helped him become the player he is now and helped him become a ball-playing lock. And Trent Barrett, for me, he's not a head coach, but he's a brilliant assistant coach. And the way in which he was able to transform Jake Trbojevic into a front rower, in 2013 to 2015 to a ball-playing lock from 2016, 2017, 2018. Jake Trbojevic was the first picked for New South Wales at lock forward in those years. So he has got this ability, Trent Barrett, of getting the best out of players, especially crafty ball players. And I think Aaron Clark he reminds me of Isaiah Yeo, the way in which his career has evolved. He's gotten from a player that has been decent to a player that is now one of the best in the competition. And I genuinely believe that. Congratulations to the Warriors. Look, the Eels, I don't want to touch on the Eels too much because I think I feel sorry for them. I think they should be awarded salary cap compensation 100%. Two players, Matt Dury, and Jermaine Hopgood have been injured for the season due to foul play, and they do not get any salary cap relief for that. I genuinely believe that needs to be discussed by the NRL and the coaches and the clubs at the later stages of the year to come up with a plan, to come up with something to suggest that is not fair in that competition moving forward. With the amount of hip drops and injuries that players are getting, they've also lost Bailey Simonson for the year. They still have a good team on paper, but for me, I believed that I probably expected more from Parramatta out of this game. I do feel sorry for them, but perhaps what I'm noticing is they are probably relying on when Isaiah Iongi is playing. I think they probably rely on him a bit too much. As good as he is, I'm seeing now that they really do not know where to go when he's not there. I'm really realizing that perhaps he is the biggest hole in this team. Now, for me, a week ago, it would have been Jermaine Hopgood by far. The way he can tighten up the defence, his offloads, the way he can just play second phase football. It's pretty unbelievable for a young mid-20s lock and front rower. Jermaine Hopgood, for me, was a huge loss. But Isaiah Iongi, he's expected to be back in a few weeks, I think it is. But we're really noticing the lack of spark and attack now without Iongi in the side. And I think, the Warriors, I think that they are a dead set red hot team. I've got it wrong. I put my hand up. I've got it wrong. I genuinely thought that they were going to be a side that was going to go very, very poor this year. I actually had the Warriors in my bottom 4, I think. I actually thought they were a contender for the spoon. And I know it sounds crazy after the year they had last year, but I just thought Mitch Barnett and Luke Metcalf, I thought that was going to affect them, those losses. And they were expected to be back around round 7, round 8. I think they got back a bit earlier than that. But my prediction at the start of the year, I just thought, I think they might just have one of those years. For me, They've been absolutely fantastic. I mean, what they did in Melbourne a few weeks ago was fucking unbelievable. There's an attitude and there's a bit of sass about them, if I may say so. You know, when Roger Tuivasa-Sheck scored in Melbourne and just got up and went, no, 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 you ain't fucking beating us here today. And I loved it. You know, they're having fun with it and they're enjoying their football. And I think they're going to win plenty more games this year. And I'm happy to get my hand up whenever I'm wrong. And I like being wrong actually in rugby league because I love how unpredictable this game is. I'd hate to just be right about everything when I do a preseason preview because look at Canberra last year winning the comp. Not winning the comp, winning the minor premiership. You know, no one would have seen that coming. And many, many people, such as myself, had Canberra in the bottom four last year, and look what they did. So the unpredictability of rugby league is something I love about the game, and I'm always happy to be wrong. Absolutely 100%. Let's get to the next game. The Roosters and the Broncos. The Roosters winning this game 38 points to 24. When the Roosters are up 30-0, there should not be that should be it. There should not be a scare. Now, the Roosters for me are clicking and they are doing a very good job. And they are one of the sides that I genuinely believe can win the 2026 premiership. There's no denying that. They have a talented roster. They have a roster that are there playing for each other, playing for their fans. They look and feel connected. They are unbelievable to watch. They really are. But they should not have let Brisbane score 24 points when Adam Reynolds comes off the field. And what Tom Duffy did. He is a good young player, Tom Duffy. Now, he was the halfback for the Cowboys in their opening 3 games last year, I believe. And he really struggled through those games. I think they had Manly round 1, 2025, and Manly pumped them at Brookvale. And that was his debut match. And then they had Cronulla in round 2 against the Cowboys, 1300 Smiles Stadium. I can't remember who they had in round 3, but they did struggle a lot, the Cowboys last year, especially in the early stages of the season. And he never got another crack. I think he may have got a crack later in the year, actually, from memory. But, I just think he's a player that the Cowboys are probably looking at now thinking, fuck, we probably could have had his depth in the side, especially when Tom Dearden plays Origin this year. I think for what the Broncos would be paying Tom Duffy, I think he is delivering and he's been a great value buy for them, a great depth signing. And I think what he has done, just his speed off the mark, he reminds me of Mitchell Moses, his speed, how he can take off and just create something out of nothing. His ability to get around players and hit a player through a hole or throw that cutout pass on the short ball cutout pass. His ability is second to none. He's a really good player, and I can genuinely see him being a starting halfback at a club in the NRL. I wouldn't have said that after, this time last year. I wouldn't have said that. I would have thought that perhaps he'd get a go in Super League. But, there is a world for Brisbane if Jonah Pezzett doesn't perform, because I think he hasn't been that great for Parramatta this year, Jonah Pezzett. He's a good player. We've seen that for Melbourne, and especially in the finals last year against the Dogs last year in the semi was one of the best games of his career. But I'm not sold on Jonah Pezzett at the moment. Tom Duffy, if it doesn't work out at Brisbane with Jonah Pezzett, then Tom Duffy is a player I genuinely believe could see being their long-term number 7. I mean, there is a world where Jonah Pezzett, it just doesn't work. There is a world where it may not work. Will it? I think probably, but if it doesn't, then Tom Duffy is absolutely a player that Madge Maguire should re-sign for another 2 or 3 years and say, hey, mate, you're going to be our 18, 19 every week as a backup half for if a player gets injured or down or whatnot. I just think I think Ben Hunt's at the club next year, but at 36, 37 years old, whether or not you want Ben Hunt playing at 80 minutes every week, I'm not sure that's a great idea, to be honest. For me, personally, I think he was fantastic in this game. But the Roosters, for me, their best player was Reece Robson and Daly Cherry Evans too. I'm a bit dirty on DCE the way he left Manly. I give him absolutely full credit for leaving Manly, like in terms of he had every right in the world to leave the club. I just didn't agree with how he did it, going on national television and waiting till fucking the day before preseason started to announce he was going to the Roosters when everyone knew. I just don't think he handled it too well, DCE. Now, I don't think Manly handled it either. I think it was a shit show from both parties, to be completely honest with you. But, I'm not his biggest fan, but you've got to put, your shit aside, he has been really good over the last few weeks for the Roosters. Scoring the first try of this game, his kicking game was great. I feel like he's slowly combining well with Sam Walker and Cherry Evans. I haven't seen a game where, I think, oh, okay, they're going to win the comp for sure. I definitely have them as premiership contenders, but I don't sit there and think, oh yeah, they'll beat Penrith in a grand final. I'm not even convinced yet they are a grand final side. But what I am seeing is a team that will play for 60 for 70 minutes, and there's a 10, 15-minute period at the moment where they just switch off. Now that minute stuff is minimising. Earlier in the year it was 50 minutes to 40 minutes to 30 minutes against Cronulla. Now it's down to 10, 20 to 15, where it's the minimising of shit play, of shit football, and switching off it's getting swallowed up by the hard work that they're doing at training. I think Reece Robson for me has to be the number 9 now. I genuinely believe that for New South Wales. I would have had Api Coruscant personally, but I just believe the work that Reece Robson has done for the Sydney Roosters over the last few weeks has been second to none. Of course, he missed the opening few games of the season with a broken hand. He came back in, I think, round 5, and I think he's been really impressive since he's come back into the side. Tedesco did Tedesco things. Daniel Tupou, fuck, they need to re-sign him, don't they, for another year or two. I think he's been absolutely sensational for them. Congratulations to the Sydney Roosters. Now, I'm going to smash through the last few games. I've got 46 minutes of this done. Gee, that's gone quickly. All right, I'm going to get to the Knights and South Sydney. For me, this was the game of the round. Fuck, it was exciting. I would have loved to have been there. Not, just as a rugby league fan, it would have been a game I would have absolutely loved to have, Newcastle had won the game at half-time. 28-10, you think, all right, they're probably going to win this. And then somehow Souths hit the lead. And then Newcastle come back, score winning try. And then Souths are about to win the game, but then drop the ball over the line. And it was such a... Now, I tipped Newcastle in this game, but for me, I've never been so nervous watching. I was holding my 3-month-old beautiful daughter, Violet, and I think she learnt some new words. I think personally, Newcastle's defence is shit. Like, I was watching this game going that their edge defence is so poor. But I felt that their middles held up in defence. I thought, I understand South's backline is unbelievable, but I felt like the likes of Trey Mooney and Dylan Lucas and all these kind of players, Phoenix Crossland, they looked gassed, but I thought defensively they held up a lot. I felt that it was the edges. The edge defence was really quite poor for Newcastle. Now, at the end of the day, it was a huge win for them, and congratulations to them. And I'm really genuinely happy for the Knights. But, I think Newcastle fans deserve a team now that, their last premiership was 2001. I was 6 years old and now I'm 31. So it's been a long time, and I think the fans deserve a premiership within the next few years. And I think I don't want the fans to get smashed by Penrith and witness that, and then only just beat Souths. Like, I want Newcastle, as a rugby league fan that genuinely loves the Knights, I want them to give them that fan base what they deserve, and that is consistency. And they will get there, and they have been reasonably consistent this year to a degree, but I'm talking from now onwards, they need to be a consistent finals team, and I want the club and the players to give back to the fans. I remember sitting there as a Manly fan in those dark days for Newcastle back in 2015, 2016, when the likes of Tarek Sims and Trent Hodkinson and Dan Gagai and a young Dan Gagai and a lot of these, the Sims brothers, I think it was, Corbin Sims. It was it was a bad, Uarte was on the wing, and the Matiutai brothers, Pat Matiutai and Sione Matiutai, I think was it. Um, that they were dark days, and I remember going there. Manly in 2016 had a poor year as well, but they had a much better team than Newcastle did, and Manly ended up winning that game quite convincingly. But Newcastle had a sold out crowd, and I remember sitting there as a Manly fan thinking, "Fuck, like we don't have an excuse, Manly as a club to not turn up and watch our team play, no matter how poor we're going, because this working class area, this fan base always turn up, and I just give them credit so much. As a rugby league fan, I just love seeing it. And I love that song that they play too at full time. Long live the Newcastle Knights. Long live the Newcastle Knights. You guys still with me? You haven't switched off? No. And if you have, I wouldn't blame you. All right, next game. Sharks 52, Tigers 10. 52 points to 10. Look, spoke to my friend Nathan the other day, and he said he was extremely disappointed. I see it differently than what most Tigers would feel. I'm a fan that would love to see the Tigers make finals. It would be great for rugby league. It would just be great in general. It's what their supporters need. It's what they deserve. But scoring 50 points in 2016, 10 years ago, compared to scoring 50 points now, isn't as bad, if that makes sense. So, for example, the amount of high scores we are seeing at the moment, we've seen 40 points scored in the first game of the season. You probably get that 10 years ago. But scores like 38-24, Roosters, Broncos, 42-38, Knights beating Souths, 52-10. Like they've been very, very high scores this round and every other round this year so far. There have been extremely high score lines. So 50 points 10 years ago would suggest your defense is fucking woeful and you deserve to get the wooden spoon. 50 points these days, well, I think 6 or 7 clubs have already received 50 scored against them. So I think it's the way the game has changed and the way the game has evolved and sped up. We as rugby league fans are now going to have to get used to seeing 50 points scored a fair bit throughout the season against or for your team. We're just going to be seeing it, and you're going to see your team. When I say for your team, I mean you're going to see your team score 50 plus points, or you're going to see your team get that against you. I don't think it's the end of the world. There was no Jareen Buller, Adam Dewey. That was extremely unfortunate doing his shoulder. Apparently he's gone for 4 to 6 weeks. He's dislocated his shoulder, I've written down here. So it's not the end of the world, but it's a huge blow. He was absolutely up for an Origin. He was an Origin chance, to be honest with you, as that 18th or 19th player. For me personally, I don't think it's the one the Tigers should reflect on too much. I think it was just one of those games. It is part of the rebuild. I'm not going to smash the Tigers here. I think they missed some quality players. Jerome Luai probably should have stepped up a lot more. Let's move to the Sharks. For me personally, the way in which Nicho Hynes and Braden Trindle are becoming more and more ruthless in attack. I feel like they are bullying sides when they are on, especially at home. They notice the side's weakness. That one whole edge for the Tigers had never played together before, and I felt that they really targeted the likes of Jock Madden. I think it was Tony Sukkar from memory. It was. It was ruthless, but they do have this amazing ability, Nicho Hynes and Braden Trindle, in acknowledging and finding out quickly where the weakness is in the opposition, and they will go and go and go at that side. Now, for the Sharks back in 2022, the halves combination was Matt Moylan and Nicho Hynes. And I remember as a Manly fan, watching that game, and Sifa Talakai in the centres absolutely destroyed Morgan Harper. And I think it was Matt Moylan and Nicho Hynes. It just kept going that way in attack, and they were relentless with it, and they would not stop doing it. And they have the way they play when they are on. They are on, and I feel like they are real. They are dead set a very underrated halves combination in the competition. I genuinely believe that. Now, I know Nico Hines, for me, in my opinion, I think his criticism at times I can understand. I think it's too much, to be honest with you, but I can understand. I think he does not deliver with the money he's on, to be completely honest with you. Um, in terms of being a consistent deliverer to a side, if that makes sense. And I genuinely believe that the Sharks have, even though they won this game, if they're going to make the grand final and win this competition, they have so much more work to do. They have so much more work to do. And I know that sounds extremely harsh because they won this game by 42 points against a red hot team of the competition that is now expected to not only just make finals, but some are saying, I don't agree with it necessarily. I don't think it is a chance at all, but of the Tigers being a premiership contender. I don't see that yet. I could see it in a few years, but not yet. The Sharks, for me, it's all good to win like this. We've seen it over and over again, year by year by year. It's all good to win 52-10, but then next week they could lose away from home. You know, they have been, I'll give them credit, they have been a consistent side since Craig Fitzgibbon got to the club in 2022. But for me, they just struggle with consistency right throughout the year. So when I say consistent, they've always consistently been in the finals, but they have consistently never got to that next level. Even when they get to a prelim, I think, who are they up against? Have they got a chance? And then you can just sort of tell that they don't have the team to get to that grand final. Well, perhaps they do, but they just don't have that next level. And I don't even think they know if they've got it. So it's all well and good to see big score lines like this, but really it's all a waste if they aren't. If this team that they've had for 5 years isn't going to make a grand final, what is it all for, Sharks players? Like that's, if I'm Craig Fitzgibbon, I'm sitting here going, we have won so many games like this, so let's make it count by the end of the year. Let's not disappoint our fans, even though the fans would be proud of them. They've been a consistent side for 5 years, or for the last 4 years. But let's give the fans what they deserve, and that's a grand final at least. All right, let's make all these big scorelines we've had in our consistency throughout the season. Let's all make it worth it by at least getting to a grand final with this team we've had for 4 or 5 years. That's what the fans deserve, and I think the fans would deserve that. I think the coach deserves that. I think it comes down to the players. He's very highly respected, Craig Fitzgibbon. I think he's doing all he can possibly do. And I think he's obviously said, a lot of you are off contract. This is your last chance where we can win a comp together as a team. This is how we get to the next level. And they all need to buy in, but they all need to deliver as players to do it. So I do see the Sharks bully sides. Are they flat track bullies? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm going to say they are. I think they are. I look at them win a game like this and I just think, okay, what are you going to do about it though? Are you going to make it count by the end of the year? Are you going to get to the grand final? Are you going to win the comp? Or are you going to bully teams for another decade and then not turn up grand final day? So I know that sounds harsh, but I think they've shown enough over the last 4 or 5 years to suggest that they have a team that can get to a grand final and win the comp. But for some reason, they can't get to that next level. So what I want to see from the Sharks as a rugby league fan is for them to go into the finals. And look, sure, I'm talking about a team that have made the last 2 prelim finals. So this is why I know and I accept that I sound harsh. But what I'm seeing is a side that is not stepping up when they need to. When they get to that prelim final, if they get to a prelim final in season 2026, this is how they are going to need to win it. They need to fucking flog and smash whoever they verse, whether it be the Roosters or Penrith. They need to get there and make a statement and say, we are not going to choke anymore in the finals. We're going to get there. And, I mean, look, for me, they haven't choked in the finals for 2 years. They've made 2 prelims, but they are I'm just a little bit sick of talking about the Sharks in terms of being this consistent football. So I want to start talking about them as being a genuine premiership contender because I think that's what their fans deserve. It's been 10 long years for the club, and I think they deserve now to get to another grand final. The last game of the round was Penrith and Manly. I'll smash through this. Penrith, congratulations to them. Now, I'm the biggest Manly fan in the world, ladies and gentlemen. I've never actually, I have met Ella from Sportsbet, I think it is. She would not remember me, but she was in my sister's year in primary school at Beacon Hill, I think it was. Um, so, yeah, I think she was friends with my sister Gemma. But I have met her many, many years ago, but she wouldn't know who I was. Or maybe she does remember I was the school vice captain. No, I'm just throwing that in there. Yeah, so the Panthers 18, Manly 16. Joey Walsh, amazing. Really, really good to see. Now, as I mentioned, I'm the biggest Manly fan ever, but that was a certain no try. The obstruction was clear, and it was an absolute disgrace that that was even called a try. Now, I'll take it. I'll take it as a Manly fan. I'm happy we got the try. I'll fucking take it. But it wasn't a fucking try. I could not believe that that was awarded. And I actually, I just thought, Jesus, like, fuck. Like the lack of consistency from the bunker is a dead set disgrace. Oh, it stinks. It dead set shits me. Like, it's just like, mate, the bunker on Rugby League 26, the bunker on my PlayStation game is more consistent than in real life. And this is a game with a lot of fucking glitches. This is a game with a shit ton of glitches. And it's still doing a better job than in real life when they've got all the better technology than and funding and money that this game has had put into it. So for me personally, I think it wasn't a try. I think this final score should have at least been 18 points to 12, 18-10, 18-12. Panthers, for me, deserve to win this game. I thought Isaac Targa, fuck, he's a good player. When he comes on off the bench and he hits that hole, he played a lot of lock forward and back row in his juniors and throughout the Penrith system. And then he comes to the club and he plays first grade in 2022. I think he played in that number 3 jersey. And he plays in the centres in that game and wins his first comp. 2023 wins a comp at centre. 2024 wins a comp at centre. And he just becomes this consistent first grade player. I think he replaced Matt Burton in the centres when Burton went to the Dogs in season 2022. For me personally, I think the Panthers thoroughly deserve to win this game. But if I'm the Manly Sea Eagles, I'm very... let's put it this way. As a Manly fan, I am genuinely... first game they've lost where I'm not disappointed. First game they've lost where I've sat there and I don't have a lump in my throat. First game they've lost where I sit there and I think, you know what, boys, that's the Manly fucking DNA that I was talking about earlier in the year. They have that Manly DNA. And what they showed me as a rugby league Manly tragic is that Manly DNA is back, where you won't win every game, but you make the fans walk away from the game. And even if you lose, knowing that every single player in that team did their best to win that fucking game. And there was a lot of mental toughness from those Manly players wearing that jersey. And they represented the players, they represented the previous players, the history of the club. They represented their fans, and they are doing their community proud. And that's what Manly have always been built on. Funny about this with Manly, hey, the amount of people in the media saying, oh, Manly might get the spoon, they'll get the spoon. And now all of a sudden, 5 or 6 weeks later, they're a chance of making the top 4. Funny that. Anyway, yeah, so funny how rugby league works. For me, I hope that they make the 4. I think they're a genuine team that can make the 4, but I still think it's probably a bit of a stretch. I think that even though they've won consistently, this was their first loss in 5 weeks. I think there's still a lot of work to do. I really do believe that. But in saying that, I'm very proud of what the effort that they'd showed in this game to lose by a conversion. And just before I head off to Joey Walsh, what he did, that no-look ball to how Molly Olakawatu that found Ethan Bullimore. Oh, that was so good. That was so good to watch. I just had goosebumps just watching it on replay. At full time, I went back to that clip and I just kept watching it going, fuck me. It was so good. It was absolutely unbelievable. So great to watch. The Joey Walsh, this kid, I promise you, this kid And I do not say this lightly as a Manly fan. Every young kid that comes through, I do not say this. This kid will genuinely be a superstar without a doubt. I know that it's not probably that big of a statement. We've all seen enough from him to suggest he's going to be a great player. But I genuinely believe this kid can be one of the best. Like, I genuinely mean that. I genuinely think he could be one of the best this game has ever seen. I've watched him closely now, even in New South Wales Cup. There is something about him, his calmness. And that's what he showed in this game. He could have easily have gone in looking nervous, but apparently he came in. It wasn't arrogance, but he came in with a lot of confidence. And that makes me very happy that he just has that natural calmness about him. You always talk about the greats in rugby league, Darren Lockyer. He talks about the calmness. When things are chaotic, it's my job as a 5'8" and as a captain of the team to be calm. And that's when you get the best out of your teammates and your team of winning games, is when you are calm and take control of those moments. And it's a good lesson for in life as well, to make sure that you act calm through chaotic times. Hey, Flynn, can you go back to sleep? No, only joking. All right, that'll do me for today. Congratulations to Penrith winning that, by the way. 18 points to 16. They've only lost one game this season, the Penrith Panthers. Honestly, I'm just going to say it. May as well give them the fucking trophy now. All right, thanks for listening. This is the Rugby League Forecast podcast. If you haven't done so already, please follow me on Spotify and on the Apple Podcasts app. And please subscribe to the Rugby League Forecast podcast on YouTube. You can see all my stuff on Instagram and Facebook as well. Cheers, guys.